Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, we are from group 12. We will present text about grammar and semantic, aspect, tense, and voice. The member of our group is me, Kartika Puspa Dewi, and there are my friends is Annisa Try Suprobowati and Abdul Ghofur. The first material is about aspect. In English grammar, aspect is a verb form or a category that indicates time-related characteristics such as the completion, duration, or repetition of an action. Compare and contrast with tense. When used as an adjective, it aspectual, the word comes from Latin meaning how something looks. They can represent a given action as ongoing or as completed. They can represent it as having taken place once or as being repeated or as being a habit. We can look at a situation in past, present, or future time, and we can look at situation in time relative to other situation in a very subtle fashion. Whether a situation is ongoing or completed, repeated or habitual comes under the heading of aspect, which can be thought of as the aspect or view which a speaker offers of a particular situation. The location of a situation in past, present, or future time, or of two situations relative to each other in time, comes under the heading of tense, which derives from the French word temps, or time. Part 1. Stative and Dynamic. Verbs and clauses. The major distinction splitting verbs into two major lexical classes is between stative and non-stative or dynamic verbs. Stative verbs are not difficult to recognize. Stative and dynamic verbs and clauses have an example. In A, what's happened? They went home. B, what's happened? They know his parents. And C, what's happened? They were very cold. If a clause can be used to answer the question what's happened, it contains a non-stative or dynamic verb. If a clause cannot be so used, it contains a stative verb. The second clause in A contains when, which is dynamic and relates to an action. Now in B and were in C, both relate to stats and are not dynamic but stative. Stative verbs exclude adverbs such as quickly. They quickly know his parent is not acceptable and they were quickly very cold is only acceptable if the interpretation is they quickly became cold. Example 2. A. We are knowing this theory. B. They're believing everything you say. It rare. C. You'll soon be owning all the land around here. It rare. Stative verbs occur either not at all in the progressive, or to be discussed below, or only occasionally. In example A is unacceptable, and BC actual example uttered by native speakers of English are very rare. Look at the third example. A. What she did was email all her friends. B. What she did was know this theory. C. What she did was be very cold. Stative verbs do not occur in the WH clef construction. This consists of, for example, what she did was followed by a clause. Example A is acceptable while B, C are not. From the above, it is clear that whether a particular lexical verb takes the progressive or not is a weakish criterion for stative verbs. But that occurrence in the WH clef construction and occurrence in clauses answering the questions what happened are reliable criteria. Part 2. Activities, achievements, and accomplishments. In many languages, the different clause structures are signaled by differences in the shape of the verb. The three classes of dynamic verbs divide into two groups. The first is that of activity verbs, which denote situations that are seen as going on in the same kind of way over a period of time and as having no built-in boundary. They allow processes such as 4 hours. Look to the example. A. Harry talked to Emma for hours. B. The dog catched the cat for days. C. Harry told Emma the whole story. And D. The dog caught the cat. What do we mean by built-in boundary? We are not concerned with the fact that there are natural limitations on activities, that human beings run out of energy and concentration and become hungry and thirsty. For the detailed explanation, the important point is that in the situation described by C, is Harry told Emma the whole story. The event of telling a story comes to an end when the end of the story is reached. Harriet and Emma can go off to practice their drawing, or Emma can tell the story again, but both count as new events. The situation described by A, or Harriet talking to Emma for hours, has no built-in boundary. There is no point at which the event of talking comes to an end and a new event starts. The talking presumably ends when Harriet or Emma has had enough or they are intrigued, but the clause tells you nothing about that. Similarly, the event described by D, or the dog caught the cat, comes to an end when the dog has trapped the cat. The event described by B, or the dog chased the cat for days, has no built-in boundary. Example D is the dog caught the cat is an instance of an assignment verb. Assignments often have to do with the beginning or end of an event and are conceived of as having no duration. They might be described as being out boundary. Other assignment verbs are wink, knock, stab, as in Mrs. Jennings winked at Eleanor. The difference is brought out by the kinds of adverbs that can be added. A, B allow adverbs such as for hours that occur with an activity being stretched out over time. They exclude adverbs such as in 20 minutes which relate to an event reaching its final boundary and being complete. In contrast, C, D allow adverbs such as in 20 minutes but exclude adverbs such as for hours. Harriet told Emma the full story in 20 minutes, it's fine. But the following examples are peculiar. Harriet told Emma the full story for 20 minutes and Harriet talked to Emma in 20 minutes. The other example is A. The beaver built a dam. B. Annie played the tune on the piano. The other class of verbs that have a built-in boundary are called accomplishment. They relate to a situation with two components, an activity past and then a closing past. In the situation described by A and B, there is an activity past in which the beaver collects materials, say, and builds the dam higher and higher, and an activity past in which Annie plays the main body of the tune.
Okay, next is activities, achievement, and accomplishment. One difference between accomplishment and achievement verbs is worth pointing out. But the types can occur in the progressive, but with different interpretation. The behavior was building the dam present, one event of building as ongoing. Mrs. Jennings was winking, and Eleanor is most straightforwardly taken as presenting not one event of winking but several events. Part 3. Grammatical aspect, simple and progressive. The progressive is a syntactic construction consisting of B plus the participle in des ing. The simple form consists of just the verb stem plus the suffix, whose central of prototypical form are des s or des ed. Okay, next you can see the example here. The first A and the first B is activity. Jane was playing the piano. Jane played the piano. Or the second A, Tess was knocking at the door, and second B, Tess knocked at the door. This is achievement. For third A, Frank Churchill was crossing the street. His accomplishment with third B, Frank Churchill crossed the street. All the above example present events as taking place in the past time. Tenses and time will be discussed below, presented with such example out of the context. Native speaker of English take the progressive example of activity or accomplishment, a verb to present a single event as ongoing. They take the example with the simple form as presenting a single complete event. Okay, the example with the progressive form, like the one, the first and third above, are interpreted as presenting a single event as ongoing. In the case, of the achievement verb in number 5. Test is knocking at the door, and 5b, test knock at the door. The knock are repeated, but it is possible to interpret the series of repeated knock as a single event. For present purposes, we concentrate on number 4 and number 6. Okay, then progressive contrast with simple. But what exactly is signaled by contrast? It seems that verb in the progressive, whether in past or present tense, are typically used to present a single event as ongoing. The simple form presents an event as completed. Past tense simple form typically present a single event as completed, but this interpretation can be overruled by an adverb such as every Friday. In the present tense, outside the special context mentioned above, they are typically interpreted as presenting an event as habitual. There is a verb in the simple form present an event as completed but leave in unspecified whether the event is single or repeated. In the past tense, the single event interpretation is the favorite and neutral. But in present tense, the habitual interpretation is the favorite and neutral. Okay, the next part is tense in English. One view is that past and present tense go together, since they are both formed from verb stem plus the suffix -s and -ad. We ignore irregular verb such as swim and the suffix plus present tense form. The traditional future tense is formed from the auxiliary verb shall and will push the verb stem, although many speakers do not use shall. Okay, next slide. This grammatical difference should make us suspect that the future tense is not a tense at all, but has some other meaning. It turns out that the will construction doesn't just place an event in future time, but in many cases signal the intention of the speaker. Will derives historically from a verb that was equivalent to want or intent and can still be used with this meaning. In many Indo-European languages, speaker and writer typically refer to the future time with verbs of movement. Many instances of a future tense derive historically from verb of obligation, this French, or from verb of volition, sorry, a Bulgarian modern Greek, even where verb of movement are used, as in I'm going to take the weekend off and start afresh on Monday. There is a strong element of intention, where future events are presented by means of present tense verb. The event referred to must be part of a schedule or plan that would only fail to operate in most unusual circumstances. Okay, you can see the example here. The snow has blocked the track. Okay, analysts have found it difficult to classify the perfect as an aspect or a tense. It has two constituents, has or have and a past participle. Here is blocked. The participle indicates an action that is completed, and this is why the perfect look like an aspect but has signal present time, and this makes the perfect look like a tense. On the assumption that some construction may simple be indeterminate, we make no attempt here to solve the problem. The perfect has been defined as focusing upon the presently accessible consequence of a past event. You can see here, I have written up my thesis resultative. This is resultative. And next, B, the minister has or just arrived, hot news or recent past. And C, I've been at work for 6 hours, external or persistent situation. And D, have you ever visited dog food zone? Yes, I have been there. This is experiential indefinite anterior. Okay, you can see above example A until D go from the most accessible to the least to the at least accessible consequence. The speaker who utters at the point A has the finished thesis to show on this or in paper form. If point B is uttered, the listener know that the minister is there with them. The speaker who utters the point C is saying, I started work 6 hours ago, and as you can see, I'm still here. Mission at accomplished. Okay, the next slide, next presenter, please.
Voice. There was an attack yesterday. The category of voice has to do with different construction available for taking an event or state and presenting it from different perspectives. We can choose to keep all the participants out of our report. The passive. B. Emma and Harold were attacked yesterday. We can choose to mention the persons attacked and patients, but to leave out the attackers. This is done by using the passive construction, in which the patient noun here, Emma and Harriet, is the subject. C. Emma and Harriet were attacked by those ruffians. D. Those ruffians attacked Emma and Harriet yesterday. Example A is an instance of what is called the extensional construction, so called because speakers use it to talk about the existence of people, things, ideas, and whole events. From passive such as B, listeners can infer an agent, and adverbs can be inserted, such as deliberately in E, which bring the agent very close without actually mentioning who played that role. E. The face was charmed deliberately. Example B and E are instances of the short passive, while C is an example of the long passive. Even in the long passive, the agent noun is in an optional prepositional phrase and is presented as peripheral. A. Can you see I'm reading? B. People go hunting in the autumn. C. We spent yesterday cooking. The patient can be omitted in A, B, and C because they are closely connected with the activity denoted by the verb. People read books and newspapers, they hunt foxes, peasants or deer, and they cooked food. Passion non-phrase can also be omitted in the clause describing habitual actions, but any transitive can occur without its passion non-phrase provided the clause describes a habitual event. The middle. This sweater washes well. This book reads well. Many middles have what is called as episodic interpretation. That is, they denote a single episode or event. Example, this car sold very quickly last week. It will take years for the Mercy to clean. The course is jumping well. One bomb didn't guide and crashed. Example A refers to a single event or selling. B refers to a single able lengthy cleaning event. C refers to a property of a particular course at the particular period of the time, and D refers to a single event of a bomb failing to guide and crashing. The obvious point to make is that English middle clause and English passive clause share not syntactic properties. Middles can only contain one noun phrase and the verb is active, whereas passive can contain a subject noun phrase and a second noun phrase preceded by be, as noted above. The middle construction has no auxiliary verb, whereas the passive has the auxiliary verbs be or get. In the passive clauses, the subject noun phrase refers to an entity undergoing some process, that is, to a patient. The vase was or got broken, and this candidate was elected or answered to questions such as what happened to the vase and what happened to this candidate. The sentence his novel sold very well has been said to present the book as selling themselves, and this analysis seems to be on the right track. There is no contradiction between two examples referring to the same novel, such as this novel reads very well, and it is a pity that nobody reads this novel nowadays. The middle construction is so called because it is felt to be intermediate between the active and the passive construction part of the in-betweenness of the construction lies in the question of role. But the problem can be solved if we recognize that, like so many concepts in linguistic analysis, central prototype instances have to be distinguished from peripheral instances. A solution that resolves the contradiction is to regard the subject noun in the middle construction as neutral between agent and passion, but as controlling the situations. Conclusion. Tense and aspect are closely connected in every language which has both. Some languages are reputed to have aspectual distinction but no tense system. And in English and other languages, tense and mood interact. The pairs of sentences below are distinguished in that the A and C examples have what looks like present tense, while the B and C example have that looks like past tense. A. Fiona may be here at 5 o'clock. B. Fiona might be here at 5 o'clock. C. If Fiona is here by 5 o'clock, we can go to the party. D. If Fiona was or were here by 5 o'clock, we could get to the party. The past tense forms do not relate to the past time. In their basic use, present tense relates to the present time, which is close to speaker and hearer, and the past tense relates to the past time, which is more remote from speaker and hearer. In the B and D, the apparent past tense from having nothing to with the past time but present a situation as remote from reality. Example E and C present the situations as much closer to reality. Example E and F presents the situation of Fiona getting a job as something that should have happened some time ago. That is, the concept of past time is relevant, but also as a situation that is remote from current reality. E. It's high time Fiona get a job. F. It's high time Fiona gets a job. Tense aspect and mood apart, further investigation of this area of grammar would soon reveal that the old dichotomy of transitive and intransitive is insufficient and has to be replaced by a scale of transitivity in which tense, aspect, mood, case, and voice all play a part. And that brings us to the end. I'd like to thank you for your time and attention today. And wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.